Hello, YouTubers out there. This is Jerry Sadovia at the movies. So this will be one of those videos that I have to discuss because it's important to me to understand this whole idea of wokeisms, which in some circles, woke replaces political correctness. In others, it has probably a lot more to do with diversity than political correctness, although there was a time when diversity went hand in hand with political correctness. Um, but that was a different time. It was back in 1990, and the examples of that are not always the best. So there's that. But anyway, what we're really discussing here is Peter Pan and Wendy, which I did see the other day, and I'm not reviewing the film. I liked it. It's good old-fashioned entertainment. Apparently, nobody seems to like this picture or discuss it or talk about it. Whatever. That's okay. It is what it is. Um, but it is virtually a scene-for-scene, to some degree, remake of the 1953 Disney picture, which I haven't seen in a long time, and I'm going to look at it again soon. Anyway, it's not tracking very well. Whatever, I don't care. You know, these are things that there's so many movies I love or like that don't seem to always track well or do well or whatever. But anyway, um, but the purpose of this video is to understand what the naysayers out there, some of them on YouTube, really, who voiced their opinion on the film based on the trailer. These were trailer reactions. So one of them, I remember, I'm not going to give names, but um, said that they were watching it and they just felt this is really woke. Disney went full woke, which is really such an idiotic phrase, number one. Number two, what is, to this day, I still don't understand the word. Never mind using the word woke, which is really strange, taking a noun, using it as a, or excuse me, taking a verb and using it as a noun. But what it describes, um, the word has been ascribed towards this idea of diversity in a movie. They are trying to have diversity. They're trying to push for diversity. Then it's also about, well, women now are having more of a voice. Literally, they are trying to say, I can do what a man can do better and blah, blah, blah. And I guess eventually it's going to enter the idea of trans being put in that position of being in a movie saying, they can do whatever a man or a woman, whatever, can do better. Usually what a man can do, they can do better. Now, if that was the case with this movie, that the dialogue from particularly the character of Wendy, played by Ever Gabo Anderson, if she was saying, oh, Peter, you can fly, I can fly too. Oh, I can fly better than you. I can use a sword better than you. Okay, then I can see what they're talking about. But they mostly referenced a moment in the trailer where, and I've talked about the trailer before, but where we see the introduction of the Lost Boys, a real mixed group. And by that I mean a lot of different ethnicities. And this was also the case with Spielberg's really terrible movie, Hook. Sorry, I never liked that movie. But I mean, you have Rufio, who looked basically Asian, and a lot of mostly black, characters are brown colored. I mean, I hate saying all that because it's, I mean, who cares, but that was a very diverse group of Lost Boys. But they didn't include girls. And my first thought was when I saw the trailer that I thought instantly of how a few years ago, and I don't know what's the story with that now, but I heard that the Boy Scouts wanted, or I should say the Girl Scouts wanted to be included in the Boy Scouts, which is really strange, but they wanted to be just the Scouts of America. Well, okay, fine, but fact of the matter is that's not, I mean, you have Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, and suddenly nowadays this is a problem. So that was my first thought when I saw it, because there are a couple of girls that come out on this hill. They come up to Wendy, who they think she's some sort of threat, and he said, "Oh, the Lost Boys. Wait a minute, what are you two doing here? You're girls." And one of them says, "So," and that's about as woke, if you like, as the movie got. in terms of illustrating how girls can also be part of a group like the Lost Boys, which is really strange because they're still called the Lost Boys in this movie. They didn't change the name to anything. They didn't change it to the Lost Children of Neverland, So, but it's such a small moment, and that is all there is in the movie. These girls are obviously some of them are black, they're brown skin. Okay, all right, fine. Um, if the whole movie had followed that school of thought that the girls have to start getting in on the boys and say, I could do this better than you, that's kind of what they are talking about, because a lot of the naysayers are saying these type of things with regards, like, for example, with She-Hulk, which I've never seen the show, but I'm told that the woman in there is that way. Um, she says, I can do what you can do better. I'm a woman. You got to pay attention to me. A woman has this, a woman has that. Okay, some of that can be overwritten, and sometimes it doesn't. It's not. One of the rules of screenwriting usually is it's better to imply or to infer than to explicate. It's not an actual rule. Well, it may be a rule, but my point is it's not maybe written that way, but that's the idea. But sometimes it can work if it depends on how it's done, and I guess what they don't like is the implications sometimes. Like, for example, Rey from Star Wars The Force Awakens. There's a moment when she's on the ground and John Boyega's character comes up to her and says, "You okay?" And she says, looks at me, "Yeah, fine." Not the worst thing in the world. Um, because even Carrie Fisher's Leia, she had her moment. She was good with a blaster. I mean, nobody thought back then, oh God, I mean, there was no term like politically correct back in 1983, like with Return of the Jedi. So, but anyway, I'm going off track a little bit, but sort of in track with this, because aside from that, the Lost Girls making their one little dialogue exchange, and aside from Wendy, towards the end when they're fighting all the pirates and Peter Pan is also fighting with the sword and there's Hook and so on, she seems capable with the sword, but not nearly to the degree of, like, Alice, for example, in Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, where Alice virtually became a warrior. I mean, she was dressed to the nines with all sorts of metal armor. I mean, so it wasn't even anything quite like that. Although, even when I saw the movie back then, I just thought it was odd that Alice would be that way, that she would be fighting the fight, which was odd. I don't think that was the original story, for Alice in Wonderland that I can recollect. But it's been a while. But with Peter Pan and Wendy, that's about it. That's it. So we're talking about 3 or 4 moments out of a whole 90-minute movie where you're reminded about how some girls can, or the Lost Girls, or Wendy, doing something that is not really okay. It's not kosher to them because it's woke. But again, the meaning is, I'm still kind of, I don't understand. Is it the diversity that's the problem? Is it having a gender, like women being able to speak up and say what they feel? Because we've always had that. If it's not Princess Leia, it's, speaking of another franchise, it's Willie Scott from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which is a very annoying character. I mean, I still like her, Kate Capshaw. I thought she did it well. I understood the point of the character, which was a stereotype, this sort of a blonde bimbo who doesn't seem to have much of a thought in her head. But it turns out that she does, and she also delivers a punch at one moment. She punches the thuggy guard, and remember they're in the minecart chase, and he falls and right in front of another minecart with the other thuggies, and it flips over. And okay, fine. So, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that this has always existed. Now, Willie Scott, of course, never said, "I'm better than you, Indy. I can do what you do, Indiana Jones." But she questioned him a lot in that movie. So But with Peter Pan and Wendy, I just don't see it. I don't see really a film that has too many wokeisms. The diversity is usually what I think is objectionable, but these naysayers won't say that. They will not say it because they know they'll be called out on it. But what are they trying to say? You know, now this is the only real Disney remake that I've seen in quite some time, particularly a live action, which I always like the idea of Peter Pan as a live action movie anyway. Um, so I can't comment on Aladdin, or certainly not Little Mermaid, which has not been released yet, or any of the other Disney type pictures. So um, I'm just more objecting to the idea of remaking stuff. But with Peter Pan, I don't mind a new version as long as it's fun. I haven't seen the last couple of Pan versions, so I can't comment. But I guess what I'm saying is that in this movie, I don't really see what they're talking about. I just don't see it. If any of you out there do, please hit me up and tell me because I'm confused. Other than those four little moments, which shouldn't have been, enough to make a compelling argument about wokeisms, which again, it's a word that's been hijacked to mean something that it's not. And I even object to using a verb as a noun anyway, and especially a word like woke. I mean, just call it what it is. The industry and Disney is known for diversifying. That's not a bad word. Are they always diversifying to their best interest? Well, that's a topic for another day. But in terms of having a brown-skinned, Peter Pan, I really don't care. I don't care what color they are. Who cares? I think it's just it's not really a new way of looking at things. This story doesn't have any new wrinkles. It does a little bit with Captain Hook, but I don't want to spoil in case anybody decides to watch it. But let's just say there was a past relationship between Hook and Peter Pan. That was where there was some goodwill, and then it got destroyed. So we'll leave it at that. But that's a new wrinkle. But other than that, it's Peter Pan. It is what it is. There's just some diversity. Okay, call it what it is. And a couple of girls and the Lost Boys, which is really very odd, but hardly enough for me to say, oh my God, what is Disney doing? But those are just my thoughts. Please lend me yours. Please subscribe to my channel. I did get about 6 or 7 new subscribers in the last month. Not bad. I wish I had more, but that's okay. I have thought about, although I don't really know if I would get anybody, if anybody would join in for a live stream. I've never done that before. I'm not sure I'm going to do it. We'll see. I'm going to get a camera specifically, like a webcam, for use with this channel. So it'll make things easier, and then I can always include my introduction. Sometimes I use a GoPro camera, which I do like, and then I can include an introduction. But with this, I can't when I'm doing it with the phone, and it's just a weird thing to say, using my phone to film myself. But that's anyway, there it is. So that's all I got to say about that. Lend me your thoughts if you've seen Peter Pan and Wendy, or your thoughts about wokeisms or whatever. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And that's it. And this is Jerry Sadovia at the Movies, signing off.